Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joshua Mietz, and I'm the instructor of clarinet here at Casper College. Today we're going to be working on the excerpts for the All-State Band audition. This first one is from the Furling Rose grouping, and it's got a couple of challenges. I'm going to play it for you first, and then we're going to talk about some ways you can work on this. That's the first one. So with this excerpt, we want to be really careful that we are, well, the first and most obvious thing we want to work on is going to be those leaps in measure 5, 6, 7, and 8, where we're jumping the octaves. This is really easy for some instruments, like saxophone or oboe. This is really hard for us because we overblow at the 12th. So the first thing I'm going to do on this is really slowly. I'm just going to practice going between those octaves, starting in measure 5. And making sure, two things on that. One, making sure that you can get the fingerings right, because it's a little bit of a mind game to get to go from the D to the D, but the D feels like a G, so it's a whole, if you're a clarinetist, you understand. The second thing I'm going to do is check pitch. I'm going to put a tuner on and make sure that each one of those can line up exactly with the tuner so that they stay pretty consistent relative to where I am pitch-wise. And as I get better at that, I'm gradually going to accelerate that. Now, one of the tricky things with this excerpt also is that it's not super fast. It's only 88 for the quarter note, but it is really important that we keep it nice and light and we keep it moving forward. This is going to come into play when we start talking about the staccatos, like at the beginning. And you'll notice, if you can see my hands here, on the very first note, that B flat, I'm going to vent that. And what that means is I'm going to put down some extra fingerings to give it a little bit of resonance. If I play it and I don't vent it, here's not vented, here's vented. Best case scenario, I'm going to vent it like this. But that's going to make slurring up to the E flat really tricky, so I'm going to forget about the right hand, and I'm just going to hold down the B flat like I would normally play it over here. 2, 3, and I'm going to keep this finger, I'm not going to push it, but I'm going to keep this finger on the E flat. Now you can see that all of my left hand is ready to go to play that E flat, and I just have to roll down here. This is going to be really important, as you want to try to keep the space, you can see it here, you want to try to keep the space in here as narrow as possible so that we can go B flat, E flat, E flat, E flat, and I'm just moving my thumb. The next thing I want to make sure, particularly when we get to order of importance here, obviously you're going to lose a bunch of points if you try to play it faster than you're able to because you're going to miss a bunch of notes. But the thing to keep in mind too is we want to hear a very good pitch throughout, not necessarily intonation, of course intonation, but we don't want your tone to get spread. And so we want to make sure, particularly I found it was tricky like at measure 8, as we get higher and higher, that A flat to the A flat, it's really easy to let your tone get kind of out of hand. You want to play it at the bottom and then match it at the top. So that we can hear those A flats, and they both sound, they're never going to sound exactly the same, but so they sound consistent, like it's the same player. Sometimes, I'll do it too much here. So that each one of those sounds the same. Now you're going to have to do quite a bit of shifting in the back of the mouth there, back of the tongue position to kind of get that to work out. The last thing in this is really making sure that you pay attention to dynamics. There's not a lot given to you, and you probably heard I took a little bit of liberties with there. They're okay with that. You get artistic points for that. But you want to make sure, like in measure 9, that's a great one. Make sure that we can hear a clear crescendo. So that when I get to measure 11, I've driven all the way through that forte, and then I can start to shape it from there. Some of this can be left up to your interpretation, but a lot of it is just play it very musically. Now we're working on the second etude for the 2026 Wyoming All-State audition. This is the A-flat major from Hyacinth Closet, and it's the Andante. They've given us quarter note equals 85, and I'm going to play it for you first, and then we can talk about it. So with this one, the first biggest question we get is about the turn. That's on the fifth line, and it's put on a C. It's in between the C and the G. The turn symbol is on the top, and then there's a natural on the bottom. The way that we're going to approach this, and I think there's only really one right interpretation of this, but we're going to play the C, and then we're going to play the D flat above it over here. We're going to go back to the C, and then we're going to play the B over here. And what I like to do with that, since it's in the middle and not on top of it, I'm going to give the C just a little bit of time, and then I'm going to put the turn kind of towards the end, almost as though it were grace notes. In slow motion. And it's really simple. You just hold down the right hand, and you're just going to do all the work with the pinky on the left hand. Piece of cake. So going on, one of the things that I think students are probably going to find tricky on this is phrasing and shaping. And this is normally in an audition like this, there's going to be two excerpts. Historically, there have always been two excerpts. One is fast and technical, and the other is slow and lyrical. One of the challenges this year is that the two are very close in tempo. Now we've got, of course, the other one is more 16th notes. This one's going to be a few more triplets and dotted 16th, dotted 8th, 16th. So they're not quite the same subdivision, but they're about the same tempo. So as you're practicing these, really make sure you can feel a difference between that quarter note equals 88 on the first one and the quarter note equals 85 on the second one. It's really subtle. It's only 3 beats a minute different, but it's going to really play into this because you want to make sure that don't give them opportunities to take points from you, right? So starting off piano and really shaping it. I hear that as one idea. I'm going to grow on this next idea. Now we're going to have a variation on that. And then we're going to have to go from there into getting those triplets to all line up. Now, as I was playing this, I was thinking about this. One of the challenges that I think the students are going to have with this is making sure that the dotted 8th, 16th don't turn into triplets and it doesn't become this sort of swing piece. Don't play it like this. Keep them very strict. If you keep them dot, 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 and thinking about your 6.8/16. That way, it'll work a lot better. Now, let's go back to the little triplet thing here at the start of the second line. We want to give it a little bit of a hairpin, and then we want to get those accents to really feel like they're accents. Let the adjudicator hear that you know that those are accented. And even that time, I played it with a little bit more tongue. I'm more articulate from the tip of my tongue. If you want to, you can make the decision, just give them a little bit of more of a breath accent. It feels a little uncomfortable to me. I don't interpret slur necessarily, the slur above that, to mean don't use your tongue on it. I think that more is a matter of showing that they're grouped together, they're phrased together, and any separation between them should be very minimal. And I come back to this, think about how a trombonist would play this, right? Trombonists have to tongue everything, otherwise it's a big glissando. So very, very light on the tongue with it, but make sure that we can hear ha, 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 ha. And you'll notice I put a little bit of a ritardando in there. I want to pull that back just a little bit, just so that I can feel like I'm coming to this arrival point. I'm going to take a big breath here, and then I'm going to start the next phrase at that forte as they've given us. Now, the trick in the end of the second line here, we've got those grace notes that go to the C double sharp. It's kind of like the turn we were just talking about. I want to hold down the D sharp, and I'm just going to lift my ring finger, which I realize is tricky. Lift your ring finger, D sharp, E, D sharp, C double sharp. I'm just lifting my pinky, and then back to D sharp. And making sure that those eighth notes at the end stay in tempo. So that at 3 and 4 and 1, I can hear those at the end. So the trick again is I'm just going to hold down the D sharp. I'm going to lift up my ring finger. I'm going to put my ring finger back down, and I'm going to lift my pinky, and then I'm going to go to the D sharp in the next note. Okay. Lastly, making sure that the end of the excerpt, this is the 6th line where we've got the rallentando and diminuendo. We want to make sure that that feels like they're staccato, so they're going to be more separate than anything has been thus far in this etude, except, well, the 4 last notes aren't staccato, but the 3 before it are. And we're going to rallentando. I'm going to pull that back, and I'm going to get slower. Even in the rallentando, ding, dun, 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 keeping that da, 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 dun, 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 never turning it into a triplet. Okay, keeping it nice and straight. And there you have it. Those are the 2 excerpts for the 2026 audition. I think they mostly lay pretty well. I think they're kind of fun to play. If you have questions, of course, send me an email, joshua.metz, that's M-I-E-T-Z, at caspercollege.edu. I'll be happy to help you with them. If you're in Casper and you want to come over and stop by the studio, we can definitely hear you. I can work with you in person if you like, or I'll be making some rounds over to visit some of the schools later on this semester. So let me know how I can help, and good luck with the audition.